just finished watching a finale that, even though I knew what was going to happen, because I read the book and I was fully aware of the conclusion and the outcome, I was still riveted to the edge of my seat. But enough about the Walking Dead finale. People v. OJ, American Crime Story. I mean, seriously. Was there anything better on TV for the past 12 weeks? Yeah, you had Walking Dead, you had Flash, you had Supergirl, you had Empire, which was my go-to guilty soap opera pleasure. But then when I started watching this show, it was a wrap. This show was just running on all pistons. I mean, I can't think of one sour performance in the entire show. You had Cuba Gooding Jr. starring as O.J. Simpson. Now, when I first heard that Cuba was going to be playing O.J., I was like, I don't really know. He looks nothing like O.J. He's smaller, and his voice is only 1% less annoying than Terrence Howard. But man, he owned it from the very first frame. It was so cool seeing Cuba just go off the rails. It reminded me a little bit of his character from Jerry Maguire. If you remember, he played Rod Tidwell. It was so good to see OJ, back in action. And judging by the finale, it seems that even way back in the 90s with his role in Jerry Maguire up till now, Cuba Gooding Jr. has no body issues whatsoever. I personally think that the first half of this series, where OJ is more at the forefront, Cuba knocked it out of the park. It didn't matter if he looked like OJ, sounded like OJ, he was just a compelling character to watch. And I would love to see him get nominated for an Emmy or a Golden Globe, but because he didn't feature that prominently in the second half, I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm looking at Sarah Paulson right now. She plays Marcia Clark, and man, if she's not nominated for some sort of award, then there's no justice, no pun intended. John Travolta, another head-scratching casting choice for Bob Shapiro, but as the show went on, I was completely invested in his character as well. David Schwimmer, I think one of the most underrated actors working today. I loved him in Friends. I loved him in his one episode of Band of Brothers. Bruce Greenwood, another actor I've enjoyed in everything he's done. He plays Gil Garcetti. I don't think he smiled throughout the whole series, but he puts on another great performance. He's kind of like the white version of the Chief in the original Beverly Hills Cop. Never happy, always grumpy, and always threatening his co-workers.
Marcia.
Yeah.
Please, nail this.
Nathan Lane as F. Lee Bailey. Rob Morrow as Barry Scheck. I'm sure I'm forgetting some of the performances, but I think they were all pitch perfect. Wait a minute. There's one performance that I have to mention. Let me tell you, I said that Sarah Paulson deserved an award for this performance, but who stole the show? I think we all know. Mr. Angela Bassett himself, Courtney B. Vance. Now, I had the privilege of meeting Johnny Cochran back in the early 2000s. My company was hired to produce a video that he was narrating. And no matter what I might think about the outcome of the case or his role in the case, I can say that the man was one of the most gracious people I've ever had the pleasure to meet and work with. I'll tell a quick story. My father is a fan of Mr. Cochran, and I had told him that prior to the interview, I had planned to go buy his book and bring it to the interview so that he could sign it, and I was going to give it to my father as a gift. After the interview, Johnny got up, went to his office, came back with a copy of his book, signed it, and handed it to me and said, "Tell your father happy birthday." Despite what I might think of the trial, I can't deny that the man was very gracious. Having said all that, Courtney B. Vance was another casting choice that I kind of doubted. I mean, there's no question that Mr. Vance is a powerhouse actor, no doubt. Again, I tend to get caught up in the physical look maybe. Maybe it might be distracting that he's shorter, smaller, not as beefy as Johnny Cochran was. But when he comes on the scene, again, he just kills it. He buries it. He drops the mic. He burns the stage, whatever metaphor you want to use. Let me back up. There is one other performance I want to mention. I'm not saying it was a bad performance. I'm talking about Sterling K. Brown as Christopher Darden. Let me just say this. I'm going to assume that the material that Brown was given accurately portrays Christopher Darden. And if that's the case, that means Christopher Darden is one of the most droopy, sad-eyed, depressing characters that I've seen on TV in quite some time. Okay, so with those caveats, I will say Sterling K. Brown, he killed it as well. But seriously, the brother just looks like he's always been rejected from the high school prom. Well, wait, here's a shot of him smiling. Okay, stop. Go back to frowning. Go back to, all right, I'm just having fun. He did a great job. It's just, wow, Chris, I just think you need to lighten up and step up your game. If you invite a woman on vacation with you, and she's drinking with you and your buddies, having a great time, and then she wants you to walk her back to the hotel room and she's standing there with a smile on her face, those are signals, Chris. They're signals.
It's signals, Jerry, it's signals, don't you?
I can't help but think that if you had read those signals properly, you and Marsha may have won the case. Speaking of actors and nailing it, can we get this woman a lead role in another series, please? Soon? Like right now? Lord. What was interesting about this show was that I think the fact that we know the outcome, I think that worked to the show's benefit tremendously, because we're not concerned about the suspense of what's the verdict going to be, what's the outcome going to be, but we're focused more on the process, the what went to getting to the verdict. I think that is evident front and center in the scene where we see the jurors deliberating over the verdict. I don't know if that's how it went down in deliberations, but it sure was entertaining to be a fly on the wall and see an interpretation of how it might have gone down. I can't say enough how I think everything came together perfectly for this show to be such a hit. I mean, I thought the production values were great. As I said, I thought the casting was great. Every actor hit their marks perfectly. I loved all the cheesy cinematography. I'm not a fan of crash zooms where the camera just all of a sudden goes from point A to point B, zooming in on a subject.
Please, nail this.
You s***ing me?
But man, when you use it right, when you use it in all its campy 70s cheesy glory, it can be sublime. The series also had that perfect mixture of drama and comedy. I mean, I found myself laughing almost more than I found myself riveted. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, you couldn't write this if you tried. Maybe that's so. I just gotta wonder, when OJ made it home in the white Bronco, did he really get out and apologize to the surrounding police for interfering with their day? Did he really walk in the house and ask for his mama and then ask for a glass of orange juice? Did he really do that? While the jurors were sequestered in the hotel, did they really fight over whether they should watch Seinfeld or Martin?
Martin it is. Wait a minute, you're so crazy.
Did Cochran really shed a tear when he saw Clinton on TV discussing the case after they had won? I'm going to say that after the acquittal scene, there were possibly 2 or 3 places where the show could have stopped, ended. But they kept going on and on and on. And I have no complaints. I wanted to see more. I love the party scene where OJ claims he's going to find the real killers. I mean, none of this stuff is supposed to be funny, but it's just hilarious. I love that they reveal how Kardashian was a little doubtful about OJ's innocence. I think the show captured pretty well that even though OJ was acquitted, he can never go back to the life he once had. I think that's apparent when he walks out in the front yard and he's gazing at the statue of him and all of his football greatness. Here's a man that even though he was acquitted, he's still been condemned for the rest of his life to a makeshift prison. Of course, OJ being the genius that he is, he actually is in a real prison, and he's been there since 2007 over some bull. Yes, I make no bones about it. I think OJ's guilty. I think he did it. I think the DNA evidence was compelling. I heard an interesting theory from a friend that OJ's son actually did it and OJ just covered it up. But I firmly believe that either OJ did it or he knows who did it. There's a part of me that feels guilty because at the end of the day, 2 people lost their lives at the hands of a brutal killing. So that cannot be overstated. The scene in the car park where the Goldman family is in the car, they turn on the radio and they hear the cheering over the acquittal. That hit me because I'm someone who has suffered a loss. I won't go into it, but it shouldn't be forgotten that to this day, there are people that are mourning the loss of a loved one. The end of the finale had lots of news clips, actual news clips from that time, and it just put me back exactly where I was. I remember exactly where I was when the verdict was read. I was working for WXIN Fox in Indianapolis, and I remember who I was standing next to in the lobby when we were watching on TV. And I'm sure, given how excellent this production was, 2 decades from now, I'll remember exactly where I was when I watched this finale. I give this series 5 out of 5 reels. I think that's the first time I've done that. I've also heard that the next American crime story is going to focus on the events in New Orleans during Katrina. That'll be interesting to see as well. I was hoping that they'd do the Michael Jackson trial. I mean, that seems like the natural progression, but this much I know, I will be watching. And that's the Martini. And if you like what you see, please subscribe.